This is Wadu TV. Truth and integrity.
It's when my father came from jail 3 years later that he asked, what happened? Did something happen to that? And I saw that man was jumping out. The soldiers had just come and we could hear gunshots. So the man died. Then he told me that, oh, the man was on operations.
Okay.
Because they knew 37 was part of the conspiracy then.
Right.
Okay. Mama ngina kwa Body TV so ni best first time na wa subscribe my channel like video no. Na Kwasi Prat ni Kwaku Baako ni se omo ye journalist omo che wodwuma ni pa. Omo na Dr. Randy Abbey din komo a Metro TV so. Dia hu ye no Kwaku Baako a wo kire mu bra 1950s mu ho coup attempt so na mototo bomb ewo Flagstaff House that time Jubilee House on na order 37 hospital or yare na fe soja man bi aso ko ba no taba hospital pa baby award no da no sa no so kan they say soja for ne teteteteo omokono na Kwaku Baako ne Kwasi Prat oni mi so mo ye na fofo pa so nanse na se umutem nsheda anye fine ne nyina sa komo no akoso ebra Dr. Randy Abbey ene omo edin komo mo che ye sena AC conduct this year election intwa NPP for die kwan nam so ba ye obekai se Kwaku Baako ko kai se NPP bedin kunim Kwasi Prat oboa NDC ene bedin kunim emu nsem bebre Kwaku Baako se we hu sunsun wi ase ni ye tiro kasa wow o ma kire kwan mfa so mo hyiaye omo ye adwuma bo mo be na for best friends omo da pa Baako so a ne ya se nyoma Baako mienu bi hyedan ko ya ntem enhyada enye fine o ma cheche mu na yenkotie Dr. Randy Abbey nso wojai media wojai Metro TV then last show no mo ehyae.
A lot of you are curious. You want to find out whether they still have their phone numbers, whether they still have numbers.
Who?
Whether you have your numbers, whether you have Kwaku's number, whether Kwaku has your number, whether they still eat together. Did they ever sleep on the same bed? Are they enemies? Indeed, were they described as twins with a 1-year age difference? Was there a woman at the center of controversy between them? Did somebody overtake another? You know, I'm sure you're interested in all that kind of gossip.
The fact that the military is here does not make the Queen of England, you know, the head of state of Ghana.
Right.
The fact that there's been a military coup doesn't change that status.
Right.
You know, that Republican status and so on. You know.
So what we had July 1, 1960 has never been altered. It's never been changed.
No, it's never been changed.
That Republican status has remained intact.
Intact.
Okay.
You know. Right. But I'm saying that this election result is extraordinary, no matter how you look at it. It's extraordinary. I mean, to win by 57-point-something% is really significant. But then there are different interpretations. You know, there are some who say that, oh, the Ghanaians saw the hung parliament and how it worked, and therefore decided that this time we will not have a hung parliament and so on. I mean, it's so pedestrian, I don't even want to comment about it. It's as if we went to a meeting and decided that this is how we are going to vote, so everybody votes in that direction. I mean, it's so childish, you know, that I don't want to even consider it. That's not what happened.
Right.
Something happened, and to explain it, I think that it's important for us to have a scientific basis for that explanation. I would think that a lot of our people were reacting simply to the economic hardships that they faced. A lot of our people were reacting to escalating prices. A lot of our people were reacting, you know, to the general broad propaganda against the Akufo-Addo administration and so on. I would think that that is what happened. But we didn't make a conscious decision to change the hung parliament and to give the NDC an overwhelming majority. That conscious decision was not made, you understand? Before the election, I spoke to many of my friends on the other side of the new patriotic party. And one of the things that they kept saying, and I was wondering where it was coming from, was that yes, they knew that things were hard. They knew that under normal circumstances they should lose the election or would lose the election. But the NDC had made a mistake in bringing back former President John Dramani Mahama. And that the people of Ghana could not bring themselves to voting for Mahama, and therefore they were going to win the elections. And this statement was made by very prominent people who ought to know. You know, it was even made by somebody who is a kingpin in the national security establishment, which must have been getting all the briefing, all the data analysis, and so on. Well, the results are out, and now we do know that the people of Ghana did not have that rejection, were not in that rejection mode against, you know, former President John Dramani Mahama. Then there were the opinion polls, Randy. Opinion polls, my goodness. That was interesting. Almost all of them went off mark, with just a few, you know, making the mark. And here we must, you know, congratulate Global Info Analytics, which came very close, you know, to what actually became the actual results, you know, of the election. It seemed to me that some of the opinion polls were conducted by persons who were engaged in propaganda, who wanted to create a bandwagon effect. You know that there's a bandwagon effect. But unfortunately, they failed so miserably, and you know, the results of the election showed very clearly. Now, Randy, you had a discussion with a very prominent person on the Baumia campaign, who actually admitted that about 10 months before the elections, they knew that they were going to lose.
Yeah, Nana Kumia.
Yes. And that their study had showed that their votes were appreciating.
Yes.
But they knew that they were going to lose.
Yes, but he said that about a couple of weeks to when he was speaking, he had become very close.
Yes, but they were still behind.
Very close. So that is where the issue of a second round and all those things were coming. And he was hoping that with the coming days they could
fantastic.
overtake.
Fantastic. My point is simply this. If they knew they were trailing, why did they get the gusto, you know, to be looking us in the face and to be telling us that we're going to win, some claiming that by landslide and so on, when they knew that we were trailing?
I suggested for a moment that they should have gone out there shouting, we are going to lose.
No, I'm not saying that.
Yes.
I'm not saying that. No, what I'm saying is that they should not have come to us, looked us in the face, and told us we were going to win by the wide margins when they knew that factually on the ground they were trailing.
Okay, so
they were trailing by huge margins.
So Kwasi, just to put things in context,
yes.
Would it also not be
Yes.
that, look, for example, if they were losing by 10 percentage points, and then just after Dr. Baumia started his, I hope roadshow will not be derogatory. Like started his campaign. Yes. Their polls showed, their own polling showed that they were closing the gap. And looking at the rate at which they were closing, it gave them some hope that if they were to intensify the campaign and go in certain directions, they could overtake.
They could have said that.
No, but
They could have said that our studies showed that, you know, we were trailing.
But who says that? Who will say that?
But it is possible to say that.
Oh.
I mean, and it said that has been said in many elections.
Yeah, but Kwasi, that will demoralize your people.
No, it doesn't.
Kwasi.
It doesn't.
It will demoralize your people.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. You understand? The electorate expect you to be honest. Honesty itself has a way of galvanizing support. Honesty.
But see, I don't disagree with you, but you see, in jurisdictions, in jurisdictions where independent polling, credible independent polling, is a part of the culture, and people can read the polls themselves, you cannot mislead them. When the credible polls say that there is a 3% gap, there's a 4% gap, you cannot come and say I'm winning by a landslide. But it appears that in our situation, like you said, there is some heading of so-called polls and all that, and that is why some of those commentary.
You are making exactly the same point that I'm making.
Because in other jurisdictions, you can't lie. You can't say those things.
Polling mechanisms. You know, led to a situation where I mean, people actually looked into our face and told us blatant lies when they knew the truth. Now, Kwaku is suggesting, and I think that you supported him to some extent, that you couldn't tell the truth because it was
It's not a question of
Can
whether
I?
tell the truth.
Yeah. What question is
You
it?
were supposed to tell lies. That's not an issue. I'm trying to recollect Ghanaian history, let's restrict ourselves, where political parties or actors have gone on a campaign trail and openly acknowledged that, look, in spite of all our efforts, we are bound to lose. It doesn't happen. In fact, that will frustrate and dissipate their electoral and political energies.
But I'm not saying what you're saying. I'm not saying that they should have gone ahead and told us that, look, in spite of our efforts and everything, we're going to lose.
You're saying they shouldn't have lied to us.
Confused.
They shouldn't have said all those fantastic things.
But don't be confused.
Yes.
You know, analysis is not about black and white areas alone. There are gray areas also in analysis. Now, what I'm saying is simply this. That we could go ahead and say, look, we've done our examinations, we are trailing behind. But the indications that we are catching up, and that we are doing X, Y, Z, which we hope will put us in the lead. That's honesty.
That might not be for public consumption in a campaign contest.
Why?
It's not realistic.
Why? People have
It's
gone
not.
into elections
You
in
see-
Ghana. People have gone into elections in Ghana claiming to be third forces.
Yeah, but not the two leading parties.
Yeah, but I'm saying that it is possible. People have gone into elections claiming to tilt the balance and claiming to become kingmakers in second rounds and so
So
on.
that's objective.
Yeah, that's objective reality. You understand? So, clearly, I mean, those who could look into our face and tell us what they knew to be false could not have organized a good campaign.
Right.
A good campaign is organized on the basis of facts. A good campaign is organized on a truthful analysis of the situation. You understand? But if you're organizing a campaign and you know that your message is based on falsehood, is based on something which is not realistic, how do you hope to win the elections?
Right. Okay. So Kwaku, let me bring you in at this point. Yes.
You know, well, I don't want us to drag
Yes.
the final
Yeah.
point Kwasi is
Yeah.
making, because I would never ever go out to campaign and tell people that in spite of all my efforts, I'm going to lose or I might lose. It doesn't galvanize your support base.
That's not the point I'm making. The point I'm making is that if you said that we've done an analysis, we are trailing, and that given X, Y, Z, we will catch up and overtake them and win. That's different from the
But
message
you
we are.
you can't even tell that to the generality of the electorate when you are campaigning. it's not.
Kwaku, maybe in
it's not-
Ghana,
it's
but
not
like
pragmatic.
maybe in Ghana, but like I hinted earlier on, elsewhere where you have credible polling, the citizenry are fully aware
Yes, but
that this poll, that poll says that there are 4 percentage points difference. There's 5 percentage points difference. There is even an average of all the polls, poll of polls,
I agree.
which says that in those jurisdictions you cannot go and tell them that you are winning by a landslide.
yes.
Take the U.S.
I don't
elections.
take
Take the
that
U.S. elections. Quick, just half a minute. Take the U.S. elections. The Democrats at some point admitted that there were certain constituencies that they were losing.
The poll showed.
You are
The
talking
poll show.
consistency,
And
not
then-
the entirety of the.
But in fact,
but if you added
in
that
fact, that's
to
what
show that
that's what proves the ouster of Biden.
And then they were actually organizing programs in order to win over those constituencies.
Yes.
It included black men, for example.
Yeah.
It included women voters at a certain time and so on. So clearly, as they went along, they were monitoring their position, they were monitoring factors which could lead to their defeat or their victory, and they were working on it
All right.
publicly, in the public glare.
Okay. Maybe we'll get there.
Exactly. If you put it that way, I have no challenge with it. But otherwise, I will have challenges. Kwasi has run an election before. I'm sure he was confident he was going to win, but it didn't happen. I was on his side in that particular campaign, you know. So to be honest, if you overgeneralize the point he's making, it could lead to the realm of fallacy, in my candid opinion. Yeah, but this is in a very
One of the issues that some parties also run away is the issue of campaign funding. And if you even take the recent Democrat one, that on the basis of the poll, campaign funds were being withheld. Yeah. And it took that change from Biden to the Vice President Harris to see a flooding of a release of some of these funds, because everybody was looking at the data.
Yes.
And the data showed that it was a wasteful venture.
And even
the
campaign funding, financing and things are a little bit more transparent.
Yes. There's a legal regime.
Yes.
But you make reference to my contest, my participating in an electoral contest. So, what actually led to my defeat was not a miscalculation of chances. It was crookery.
Okay.
You understand?
A breach of trust.
Yes.
Crookery. Absolute crookery. Not breach of trust. Crookery.
Yeah, but we still were sure.
You know,
we still
24 hours before the elections, there's no campaigning and so on. 24 hours before the election, my opponent got announcements to be made that I had withdrawn from the election.
You had withdrawn?
I had withdrawn from the election.
But
and so many other things happened. That is sheer crookery. Okay. It has nothing to do with
we were still
calculations
confident,
and so on.
in spite of the breach of trust that in this case breached the alliance accord. The alliance accord had made Kwasi
the candidate,
official candidate, and this is documented, and so that itself was part of the challenge. Once Sheikh decided not to go alone, and he had support from people like J.H. Mensah and the rest, it meant that it immediately diluted the momentum that Kwasi had. But still, Kwasi, we were confident that we could do something. Yes, but that's not a major point to highlight and interrogate. Let me do one or two things.
Okay.
See, yesterday's event, unfortunately, I couldn't watch the entirety. I saw bits of it when I got to the base. But Ghana was the winner. The NDC won massively. There's no doubt about that. There's no need even to subject it to any serious analysis as to why and how. Not now. But they won. GC has declared them the winners. That's what we all went along with. The event itself, the little I saw, was also good. The guest of honors that came, very good. It's Ghana first for me, as far as I'm concerned. We've gone through a lot of transitions. If you take the 1992 to 93 out, because that was transition not under the Fourth Republic, that brought us into the Fourth Republic.
Yes.
And in fact, the election was conducted by the INEC and not the EC.
Yes.
So that is out, but it's still important because that led us to the restoration of constitutional normalcy and multi-party democracy. The main thing, the point about second independence, is they are entitled to, characterize this as such. Again, you don't debate them. For me, the most qualitative transition that has helped us to stabilize our democratic consolidation was the 2000 election. I'm not talking numbers. I'm not talking margins. I'm talking of the fact that it was the first time ever that we had a transition from one party, that is a ruling party, to an opposing party.
Right.
It restored a certain confidence and trust that, look, the system would work. Don't forget, we had 19 years of Rawlings administration, PNDC, NDC put together. There were people who were wondering whether indeed the ballot box could even be used to change administrations. There was an ocean of pessimism relative to that exercise. Those of us who were involved in the transition from the agitations from MFJ to Alliance for of Democratic Forces and all those things will tell you the story. Kwasi raised some issues which were also present those times. The question now, let me deal with substantive issues. You see, the EC, the issue about the independence of the EC, the membership of the EC, the composition of the EC, has also been here for a very long time. Indeed,
And the utterances of some EC officials.
Yes, I'll come to all those
Right.
things. Even Afarijan. And as far as I'm concerned, his organization, mobilization, conduct eventually vindicated him and the process. But he was a target from the INEC days to the EC chairmanship.
He was deputy in INEC.
Yes.
Okay.
There was nothing like trust. You have to go back. Some of us were all included in the agitation because we didn't trust the INEC structure. And INEC, when it was dissolved and the EC created, you had a situation where some people in the INEC had become members of the EC. So
Right.
there was still suspicion, lack of trust. David Kanga, that's the name.
David Kanga.
Kanga.
Yes.
He was in INEC. He and Afarijan became EC.
Yes.
The opposition parties were not happy with them and created a lot of problems for them, including us. Indeed, IPAC was formed as a way of trying to diffuse those things, bring about collaboration and trust. Even IPAC, you have to check, there were serious disagreements to the extent that there was a stage that even the NDC, which was the ruling party, boycotted IPAC. The opposition parties were insisting on even members of political parties being made members of the EC. Documented, this is well documented. I brought some of them here because we were looking at what happened in the Francophone nations when they were transiting to multi-party democracy. With the benefit of hindsight, I disagree with that. But I believe we were part of those who were agitating for such things. We used to hold, the first elections were held on 2 separate days.
Yes.
Parliamentary and presidential.
Yes.
At IPAC, we insisted that, look, fuse it. The NDC was opposed to that. But through consultation, collaboration and things, it worked. I think that IPAC has done a lot to help the parties arrive at the consensus we are, in spite of its challenges. Now, the question of membership of the EC, which Kwasi touched on and mentioned, I think, one name. He didn't mention the other name for whatever reasons. See, Randy, the seeds for this situation in which we find ourselves were sown when we were creating the EC. The EC, as you know, was created in 1993 by Parliament. See, I have a bit of thing that I want to read in full. It will take some 2 minutes. This is the Electoral Commission Bill presented to Parliament on June 18th, 1993. It was presented by Martin Amidu, then Deputy Attorney General. See, just listen to this. Mr. Speaker, this bill does not appear to state that the members of the Commission shall not hold office in any political party. This is provided in Chapter 19 in the case of the National Commission for Civic Education. In the case of the Electoral Commission, it is just stated that they shall hold office on the same conditions as justices of the superior courts. And even though under the provisions dealing with the judiciary, it is not provided that justices of the superior courts shall not hold office in any political party, members of the judiciary are by convention not allowed to hold any such office. They are also by convention not allowed to hold other public offices that could compromise their position as judges. And since the conditions of service of the members of the Electoral Commission are made identical with those of members of the judiciary, we assume that all the conventions and norms that govern members of the judiciary will equally be applicable to members of the Electoral Commission. We think that it was deliberate that the framers of the Constitution equated them with the superior court justices and intended that all conditions that apply to the judges should apply to them also. There was a suggestion that the members of the commission should be debarred from holding private offices and that they should not belong to any political party. On the issue of not belonging to any political party, it will appear that any provision of that nature will conflict with the Constitution, because it gives to every human being freedom of thought and expression and association. They may not overtly indicate their preferences, but they are entitled to have in their minds some leanings, but they are not supposed to hold membership cards or belong to a political party. I do not think it is appropriate for us to spell it out in the bill that they should not belong to any political party, because by so doing, it might appear as if we are taking away a fundamental human right from them. The convention of the office, just like in the case of judges, is that members of the commission are non-partisan. You see the philosophy that went into the bill that led to the creation of the EC. We treated them on the same level like judges. Check the judiciary over our history. There are political party members. There were former members of parliament. There were members of key executives of this administration who are judges, in spite of their political leanings, whether current or past. And I don't want to mention names, but I'm sure you know there are many, even under this Fourth Republic, former members of parliament across the political divide, former party executives across the political divide, who became members of the judiciary, that is judges, justices of the courts, from High Court, Court of Appeal, and the Supreme Court. You know what I'm talking about? This is the philosophy that the first parliament, in creating the EC, put in the bill and the memo. Same way, if you look at Teresa Cole, she was a member of the first EC. She was a founding member of the 31st December Women's Movement. Yet she was a member of the EC. And it is backed by this bill. My attitude is this: if we want to change it, let's change it.
What do you think, on the basis of our experience,
Yes.
and all the agitations? I mean, do you think that it's maybe the intention behind it, and it's good that we have this lesson, that, oh, look, the intent was this, but having practiced it this way, because somebody asked, for example, if tomorrow there are vacancies on the Electoral Commission, and we see that President Mahama has nominated Honorable Fifi Kwete or Honorable Asiedu Nketia,
Yes.
to go and chair the commission,
Yeah.
what would be the impression? What would be...
I'm glad you say
yes.
impression.
Yeah, what would be the impression, one? What would be the level of mistrust that persons outside the NDC will have? What would be the perceptions and misconceptions that people will have about the commission?
Well, this is, you are inviting me into the realm of conjecture,
Yes.
speculation,
Yes.
and, perceptions and things. You are entitled to have those impressions. Here I'm dealing with a creature of law.
Yes.
And the genesis of that creature. And indeed, many of those who are making so much noise, some of them were sitting in this parliament. Some of them...
Maybe on hindsight.
Yes, so then there's a constitutional way of opting and taking that feature out. Can you do the same with the judiciary? Not possible. That because I was once a member of parliament of party A, and I've decided that, look, let me go for my profession, my professional pursuit instead of the political, I must not qualify to be a judge? How are you going to resolve that? And that is why here in this bill, they did the equation. It's not my creation.
Maybe we can excuse judges because you see, judges don't sit there only to deal with political cases. When it comes to the work of a judge, maybe the political cases even constitute 1% of what they do.
But you can still, the 1%.
No, I'm not saying that there is. I'm not saying that you don't have an issue of political cases, but I'm saying that when it comes to the Electoral Commission,
Randy, so how do we change it without reference to the bill?
We have to look at it. Yes.
So the point I'm making is that I get surprised when I hear people, some of whom were members of this parliament, and sat there and endorsed this bill and created the EC based on law, pretending that they didn't know the seats they were sowing, and also pretending that over the years we haven't had politically affiliated persons who have been members of the EC.
Can I?
Oh, why not?
Yeah. Okay.
Tell your discussion.
Yeah. First of all, I mean the conduct of 200 citizens. The conduct of 200 citizens out of more than 20 million citizens. You cannot hold 20 million citizens to the conduct of 200 citizens who were in parliament.
What do you mean?
The Kwaku's argument simply is that he gets surprised when people who were in that parliament, who were 200, decided to do something which is today being criticized. There were 200 people who were entitled to their views. I'm sure that even within the parliament, it wasn't all the 200 who agreed.
There was no dissenting vote, though.
Okay, but let us assume that 200, you understand? That's a small section of the population. But be that as is made, the issue of the independence of the Electoral Commission in 1991 was a subset of a general discussion about how to ensure free transition. Our position.
When you say our, who do you refer to?
I mean, those of us who are engaged in the struggle for the restoration of limited democracy and so on.
Right.
You know, our position, our issue, was that the PNDC could not supervise any transition. And for that matter, we needed an interim transitional arrangement which did not involve the PNDC. And we proposed that that transitional arrangement ought to be headed by the Chief Justice. Okay. So the arguments about the neutrality of the institutions that the PNDC set up and so on came from this grand argument about the PNDC being an interested party in the transition.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? So I think it's important for us to look at it that way. Again, you ask very important questions. I mean, if tomorrow President John Mahama were to make some appointment to the Electoral Commission based on law, whatever, and then I have posed this question before, we were told that he had appointed Dr. Tony Edu onto the Electoral Commission. What will be our reaction? There will be total revulsion. Because the independence of the commission ought to be manifestly clear. You understand what I'm saying? Ought to be manifestly clear. So, no matter what the law says and so on, if the Electoral Commission is to be a referee in election, and it is packed with card-bearing members and so on, it does raise substantial. Pardon?
Card-bearing members. You are talking here of one person. As far as I know, you are talking of one person. That's why I gave you Teresa Kotu as an example.
Was Bosman a patron of Tescon?
As far as I know, no.
That allegation
I don't know. I've heard it many times.
Okay.
Yeah.
That allegation has been made. But let's say that if card-bearing members of a political party are appointed onto the Electoral Commission, it does raise substantial issues about the extent to which it can be independent, the extent to which it can organize free and fair elections. And that's a fact. You understand? That's a clear fact. Now, the argument which Kwaku makes, which is derived from the presentation which was made by Mr. Martin Amidou and so on, even in there, Mr. Martin Amidou makes a recommendation that members of the Electoral Commission ought to take the example of those who serve in the judiciary,
Yes.
who are enjoined not to display their
Yes,
bias.
that is, once you are appointed,
Yes.
you are expected to actually conduct yourself in a non-partisan manner. But your previous political alignment and affiliation does not constitute a disqualification for that appointment. That is what they themselves said. And that's why...
By they themselves, what do you mean? I'm making an argument that not Martin, I mean, you know, so
No,
they
but you
themselves
made
does not
reference
apply.
to it. No, it's
Yeah.
because you made reference to
Yeah,
it. So
I'm
I was
making
trying-
reference to it to the extent that the proposal came from Martin Amidu.
No,
And
from
Martin
the
Amidu
government.
himself,
From the government.
whatever. The government then even saw the need to insulate the commission from partisan considerations and so on.
Yes,
It's
you know
that.
what is interesting?
Yeah.
The interesting point, and I've raised that issue too. Whilst in the Constitution, when it came to NCCU, they put it in there.
Zero.
Yes, that you shouldn't have any political affiliation.
Hey.
Yes, but read the first line I read.
Yeah.
So why is it that when it came to the creation of the EC, all of them said this should be the line? And what the caution they were given is that once you become a member of the EC, you are expected to discard your political affiliation. Same, that's why they reference the judiciary, that people could have political past, association with political parties and traditions. But once you are appointed a judge, and it's true, it's part of the code, you, the judge, you are supposed to take yourself out of your political realm. You are supposed to judge matters on evidence, law, and facts. That's what you are expected. Because in any case, don't you see that they were even talking about it would be a violation of your right to assembly, expression, and association.
But that's a problem.
That's a problem. And that's
It's
why
a
I said
problem to the
if you
extent.
want to re-engineer it, go by
So,
the law.
Kwaku, your point is that Kwaku, the point you will make. Let me just understand
Yeah.
something. The point you make is that look, the law setting up the issue of the Electoral Commission and its appointments, and in fact, what went into the enactment of the law?
It's a man.
What went into the
Yeah, the
enactment of the
philosophy
law?
that went in.
Envisaged people with political leanings being appointed.
Yes.
And it didn't have the spirit behind the law, they didn't have anything. In fact, the spirit and the letter, they didn't have any problem with that. What they wanted was a conduct post appointment.
Yes.
And so you think that if 3 decades on, we think that it is a problem, we must first of all admit that the law allows for it.
Yeah.
Having practiced the law for, let's say, 3 decades, we think that it's an area that we need to take a second look at.
That's right. That's right.
So that's the
That's
point
right.
you're making.
Yes, that's
you are
right.
not saying that you have a problem with anybody who thinks that we should.
Oh,
Change,
but I
yeah.
have a problem with anybody who has a different view. I mean, that will not make me what I am, what I've always been. Okay? But isn't it interesting that when it came to the NCCE, they were so positive whilst they were dealing with this matter. But when it came to the EC, they get a balancing act and said, look, your right to have political leanings and things is established. Except that when you get in there because of the convention with judges, that they did the linkage. Judges, we all know, once you become a judge, and we have many.
Maybe they didn't expect that. They didn't expect that subsequent governments will perhaps look at.
Their own
Let's
government, that government had already appointed.
Let's say, let's say, political party communicators who perhaps rapidly go, for their party and all that. They didn't envisage that maybe we'll go that
if
route.
there's a mischief that has occurred in the evolution of the constitutional democracy dispensation, there could be a cure for it.
Yes.
So legally,
Right.
That's my view.
Okay.
Okay.
Specific, let's wrap up on this so Kwaku can finish.
So I can't.
Yes, on this EC one, then Kwaku will come back
Yes,
to you on the
so-
The point I'm making.
Okay, let's see.
Yes.
No problem.
Kwaku, go on. Yeah.
The point I'm making is simply this: that independence ought to be demonstrated clearly,
Yes.
and that there are things which take away that perception of independence.
So,
Now let us even assume that Kwaku is right, okay, and that the law does not frown on people who are appointed onto the commission having had a political affiliation past and so on. Let's agree that that is right. Is it wrong for others to see that that could constitute a problem and to begin a campaign to change it? Because to change it means that we have to discuss it first.
Yes.
Yes.
Bring out the problems and so on.
Yes.
We need to bring that out in order to be able to change it.
Of course.
You understand? Now, I would find it exceedingly strange if anybody thought that there was nothing wrong with appointing clear, politically affiliated persons onto an electoral commission. I find it strange that anybody would say that. Beyond that, if you look at the role of the NCCE and the Electoral Commission, which of them ought to demonstrate more independence? That's the role that the
Electoral Commission.
The Electoral Commission.
Yes.
You understand? So if even for the NCCE, we had to take measures to enact laws.
The bar ought to be higher for the Electoral Commission.
So that's what they should have done from day one, because they recognize the NCC as you are saying, and yet they actually bar them from political.
I'm sure on hindsight, some of the people would recognize that, look, you can't raise the bar this high for the NCC and lower it for the Electoral
They
Commission.
did it at the same time.
They
created the two bodies same time, and yet this is how they went about it.
Right.
And I'm saying, if it comes to the membership too, again, we have history of people politically past political alignments being appointed to the EC. It's also not new. Now, see, that's why I started by Afarijan being a point of vindication. Afarijan, if you read Kwame Nahoy's book carefully, Kwame Nahoy makes the point why he went lobbied for Afarijan because of his political orientation, pro-Nkrumah orientation. That's why they got Afarijan to join the committee of experts. That was his view. And then two, also INEC. So Afarijan, when he was being tapped into the system, the people who were doing it looked at his political orientation.
According to Professor Hoy's book.
Yes, and he's not somebody you can underestimate.
Of course.
Black and white.
Of course.
Okay? I have known Afarijan for years. I never thought about that till I read Kwamna saying that. It surprised me. But that is his view. And indeed, he was there. Afarijan moved from the committee of experts to the INEC. And then from INEC to EC. But his conduct over a period, and there were mistakes too under Afarijan. So it was a target, even for parties across the divide. But eventually, his experience, everything showed that, look, in spite of one's political past, you could end up being a good referee,
right,
reading the context of our electoral processes.
Right.
So he's virtually an institution, a very credible one. Kanga. He was a member of the Justice Adnan-led NCD, National Commission for Democracy, and Kwasi knows what body did. Okay, I have all the documents, I have the resolutions and everything. Kanga too was moved from there. Indeed, there are people who suggest that he was even a kid there, and became INEC. INEC to EC. Totality of his stewardship, for me, vindicates him. He didn't come doing all sorts of things to manipulate the system. Okay, after all, they were in charge when the qualitative transition happened in 2000. They were there. They couldn't change the course of history. So if we want, and you summed it up well, if we think this is a mischief that needs to be cured, let's take it to the table where we can interrogate issues properly. Okay, so that's my view. See, the question of register, and Kwasi knows that very well. There were demands for a new voters register towards the transition, Fourth Republic. The election, the first election, we used the voters register of 1987. Opposition said was bloated, it was this. All the resolutions.
But we updated it. We updated it for the 92 election.
No. No,
We did.
No. We used the register that was used for the district assembly elections
In 87.
87, 88
Yes.
for the 1992 elections. It's all here.
No, we allowed for new people to be registered. New people were registered.
No.
Yes.
Well, I don't know what.
I didn't vote in 87, but I voted in 92.
No. Yes, but that's not the point I'm making.
Okay, all right.
The point I'm making is that the whole register, it wasn't abandoned. The resolutions are here, bar association, the civilian political party.
It served as a primary document.
Yes,
Yes.
that's the point.
Yes.
And indeed, IFES, it was International Federation of Electoral Systems, came, did an audit, and said it was bloated, it was not credible for election. And right, there were agitations.
Right.
That's the build-up. Were ignored, and that was used. It was from the IPAC stage that the real reforms, and that's also part of where we are today. When IPAC was created, and we came up with the transparent ballot boxes, photo ID cards, all those things helped to consolidate. You know, the EC, when you talk of the EC independence, and check IPAC meetings, check the records. There have been efforts by political parties to get IPAC institutionalized, to give it even legal backing. The first reaction of EC from Afarijan to today is that no, that would dilute our independence because the Constitution empowers us to be the sole repository or custodian of our electoral things. So there's a problem there. But at least I think we've done well for ourselves by accommodating the IPAC formula progressively, in spite of the challenges that occurred. So to be honest with you, as I said, we've had different types of transition. I was just last night trying to list. There are few of them that have their own peculiarity. For instance, the pre-92 one that brought us into 93. Clearly, I've always called that a selection rather than an election, if you are looking at the polls matter. And Kwasi referenced the PNDC demands we made. So yeah, I brought all the results, including some that you see Kwasi's own signature there, you know, MFJ and the rest. 1993 to 97 was the second transition, but that was the end of the Rawlings. No, that was Rawlings' second term.
Yes.
When it's from one party, the same party, it's not that difficult. The 1997, 2001 to 2005 was 2005. Yes, was rocky.
No. So you are referring to the 2001.
2000 election.
Yes.
Yeah, but check
So the transition from 2000 to 2001.
Yes.
The election was in 2000.
Yes.
And President Kufuor was sworn in 2001.
And one.
Yes.
Then to 2005 was the first term.
Yes.
That's what I meant.
Yes.
We all know what happened in the initial stages of that historic Trump by Jack. In terms of course, we didn't have the Transition Act.
Yes.
But we are talking here of a certain conduct.
Yes.
Seizure of cars.
It was like a novel situation.
Yes, novel situation. Payments of ex gratia, controversies, all those things. From 2005 to 2009, we had it. That's the fifth transition.
So you're talking about 2008 to 2009?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I see how you want to, to look at it.
2008 to 2009.
I think that's a more accurate point. We saw it 2009, January to somewhere March. We had the same challenges. Seizure of vehicles, controversies of payment of ex gratia, all those things. 2012, that particular transition, I don't even know whether to call it transition, when we had the tragedy of losing a sitting president whilst in office. You had the Vice President Mahama being sworn in. I think that was smooth. That was another high point of our democratic consolidation, even though it came with tragedy. But it showed that those provisions in the Constitution are workable and could be implemented. It helped in terms of nation building constitutional culture. Then, of course,
there was a small controversy, and sometimes we tend to miss that point. And I'm sure that both of you remember, I'm jolting your memory, where because he was that novel, you know, there was this argument that the then appointed vice president ought to be vetted by parliament.
Yes.
You remember that bit?
Yes, I do.
Yes.
And
Emisata.
Yes, and eventually they did.
Yes.
You understand?
Yes.
That also became a novelty of a sort, you know. Then, of course, come 2013, that is the 2012 election. First time we had an election petition, dragged on for almost 8 months. Again, in my view, it helped to consolidate our democracy. Forget about the outcome. It helped. It showed that we could contest election results in the appropriate forum and let the arbiters of justice take a decision. I think we had the same thing in 2020. So we've had 2 election petitions. That again was the same party that won the election. So it's a bit smooth, except that the point I'm making was that that transition was characterized by an election petition, which, in my view, reinforces our democratic culture. We are living with it. We are learning lessons from those exercises. In fact, if you recall, the 2013 election petition led to reforms, key reforms recommended by the Supreme Court, which IPAC picked up and also worked on it. Again, I think I've forgotten about the biometric
register
technology that came on board. And this was 2008.
Yes.
2012 rather.
For the 2012 election.
For the 2012 election. So, yeah, it's a situation where some 30-something years, in spite of the challenges, and there are people who maybe are not too optimistic about how we are going forward. You know, there are people who think elections, democracy is not reducible to only elections, and that's true in real terms. But we do not have the luxury of an alternative. It comes to the methodology of changing administrations. We don't. If otherwise, we'll be collapsing this whole system. So to that extent, Randy, what happened yesterday was one more upgrade. I didn't say reset. The way you were looking at me when
is an upgrade. So some say that. So you describe it as an upgrade.
Yes.
Okay.
Of our.
So an upgrade that will lead to a reset.
No debate. You know.
Right.
So this is where we are as a people, as a nation.
Right.
I mean, considering that this country suffered a lot of military interventions that disrupted constitutions, and it comes to Kwasi's point about the republic. Yes, in principle, I'm with him, because it's true. It's not because I share his view, but it's because it's the truth.
Yes.
That Ghana as a republic has remained a republic in spite of all those.
Since July 1, 1960.
Yes.
And that has never
Can't
changed.
change.
Yeah.
The republican status or culture that was infused in our system remains. And clearly, as he made a point, the Queen used to be our head of state. That's when we were not a republic.
Yes.
We became a republic, and a Ghanaian citizen, by law, you know, becomes the head of state.
And that has never changed.
It's never changed. But it's because of the coups, the disruption of constitutional governance, then brings in a different era, segment. You know, so it is a segmentation.
Maybe it shouldn't be called maybe they shouldn't have. We shouldn't have referred to them as republics. Maybe we should have found another name, because on the face of it, somebody might think that we lost our first republican status, we gained it a second time, we lost it, gained it a third time, and we lost it, and we now have a fourth one.
I agree, and see, that was one of the reasons why I was opposed to the relegation of
1st July.
1st July.
As a statutory public holiday.
Yes.
So a commemorative day.
Yes.
Yeah.
For me, it was an error.
Do you want it back?
But what else?
Okay.
There's the luxury. We do not have the luxury of an alternative. I repeat, when it comes to what our Republican status represents. And I said so when the government did that change. I was not happy. You know.
Should August 4 go?
But I've said this many times. You see, the dates like August 4, September 21st, and I'm sure maybe Kwasi will be surprised I'm saying this, but I've said it many times. When Mills was making September 21st a statutory public holiday, not by law, through executive instruments, I said no. Because you know why?
September 21 being Kwame Nkrumah's birthday.
Yes.
Okay.
September 21st was a public holiday under Nkrumah.
Okay.
From 1958 to 1965. The coup happened February 66. Yeah. When we don't have a certain consensus, those dates keep changing. They never stabilize. And the history of Ghana shows it. As to who is founder, that is established. That is done deal. My position, everybody knows, is that Nkrumah is the founder. But under Nkrumah, the 21st September was the Founders' Day and was celebrated every year from 1958 to 1965. Subsequent to that, it was the Mills administration that brought it back. The Akufo-Addo administration took it away. And
moved the apostrophe.
Yes, my view is that Nkrumah does not need a holiday
on his birthday.
Yes, to establish his iconic nature.
6 March and 1st of July should suffice.
You can't challenge that.
Yeah.
In all the other days, and look, maybe I'll bring in May 25th because of my Pan-Africanist orientation, even though somebody can argue against that. But to be honest with you, there are certain dates when you make them statutory public holidays, when the wind changes, they will be blown away. And I made this position clear from 2010 when the Mills administration brought the idea of the Nkrumah. Not that I didn't like it, but I'm saying I was asking whether sustainable.
They didn't find it sustainable.
Whether it would be sustainable.
Okay.
Nkrumah's greatness, his iconic nature, goes beyond celebration of holidays for him.
Okay. Maybe I hear you on this the last bit.
Yeah, very briefly. And it's just to state a principle.
Yeah.
You know, history by its very essence can serve as a guide.
Okay.
But it's not a validator of what happens today.
Okay.
And I think that is very clear.
Yeah.
By its very essence, it can serve as a guide. But you cannot say that because it happened in the past, it is right today.
Okay.
That's a matter of principle, clear principle.
And especially the problem I have is that if those who made that issue look good are not courageous enough to admit that, look here, we were wrong. So let's move forward with the right things.
But it's not just about them. It's about the whole nation. That's the point I'm making.
You see, and
that's the point I'm making.
This reminds me about the 200 versus 2 million people, 20 million people or so. Almost all our laws are not made by the masses on the streets. All of them.
Yeah.
And yet we commit ourselves to it. Of course, one can say something for the 4th Republican Constitution to the extent that it was subjected to referendum. Even there we had difficulties. I voted yes. Some of our colleagues said no, that they didn't want. Some of the views we made was that to have a constitutional democracy, however imperfect, was preferable to the outright despotism of the military regime. So yes, to that extent, there was a popular participation via the referendum of April 1992. Right. But otherwise, all our laws, even amendments to this constitution sitting there, it was done in Parliament.
Exactly.
When
except that process does not take away the right of the people who are represented in Parliament to kick against what the Parliament has done and to protest against it.
What is the formula?
You understand?
The formula would be that maybe there's an election, there's a referendum, there's, and of course that is to change. But to talk, we have demonstrations, we have protests, You understand? We have these things. We can hold rallies, you can do seminars, which we have been doing for years to conscientize people in that direction of maybe a change. That's it. There's no other alternative within the context of the Constitution.
But the point I'm simply trying to establish is that Parliament may make decisions. Theoretically, parliamentarians are supposed to represent the population. But there have been many instances throughout history, and history includes yesterday, you understand, in which Parliament has made decisions which are unpopular with the people, and they have been changed.
Yes, true what means.
Yeah.
Let's go for the specific. True what means.
So many means.
Yes.
So many means. And I don't want to be tempted to go into the means, because the means include overthrowing government.
You see, and I'm saying that option is
overthrowing government.
That option is
well, you may decide to close it. You understand?
But
I'm saying that
the Constitution closes it.
Yeah, but who says that everything that the society does which is popular is constitutional?
Oh, Kwasi, we have the law there.
I mean,
the law, that document there.
Yes. But the law itself,
this fundamental law of the land.
The law itself has validity only to the extent that the people accept it.
They accepted it.
I believe that it serves their interest. You understand?
Further amendments have been done by Parliament.
Yesterday, something very significant happened at the Independence Square or Black Star Square, whatever it is called. You understand?
What is the difference in the name?
I sometimes wonder.
Independence Square, Black Star Square, what is it?
But some people have made a huge...
Is that also one of the Flagstaff House Jubilee House issues?
Exactly. That's it.
Well, not exactly. Because
exactly. The name...
What I saw written there yesterday is Black Star Square.
After the 1966 school, you know that.
Yeah.
It was
so proud to 66 was the name.
Black Star Square.
And the Independence Act is there.
Okay. Then it says after 66 school, Black Star Square was changed.
To Independence Square.
Okay. But yesterday I saw Black Star Square written.
Yeah.
But I don't see it in the context of the Flagstaff House
Jubilee House. Okay.
Right. But I'm saying that something very significant happened yesterday at the Black Star Square or Independence Square, whatever you call it. Okay. What was it? The head of state who had the largest applause, the most emphatic display of public enthusiasm.
Was a 36-year-old.
Ibrahim Traore.
He was a Western cowboy.
Ibrahim Traore. Clearly. No, I mean,
not that.
That should say something. You understand?
No,
but that should say something.
Something
if I the Speaker of Parliament,
the
Speaker of Parliament,
call him cowboy, call him whatever. The endorsement, the public endorsement, as far as you can.
He had the loudest applause.
The loudest applause, the loudest enthusiasm.
Okay.
We've seen it all before. I am very cynical and skeptical about these characters.
Okay.
We've seen it all before. Okay. You've seen more than.
No problem. So, please. But for the moment yesterday,
he was
all the so-called democratically leaders and so on did not get the kind of endorsement that Ibrahim Traore got at Independence Square. And that's a statement.
I'm struggling to get the logic of your point. What is it? That the Ghanaian community...
No, not just the Ghanaian community.
No, we're a majority there. The people clapping. Majority, obviously, were Ghanaian citizens.
Okay.
What were they endorsing?
What they were endorsing? They were endorsing a struggle against neocolonialism. They were endorsing a struggle for African people to take hold of their resources and to exploit it for their own benefit. They were endorsing a regime which is saying no to foreign military bases on African soil and so on. Those were the things they were endorsing. Now, democracy, I'm saying that democracy must yield something that the people want.
Right.
Because democracy in our lifetime and throughout the world on many occasions has yielded things that are against the interests of the people. Clearly, so-called democracy. And in any case, if you come to test for ingredients in this so-called democracy, you find it lacking in many of the countries in West Africa.
We fought for this. Why did we fight to restore constitutional normalcy and multi-party democracy? Why? Why did we do that? We put our lives on the line.
Yes.
Some died, actually.
Yes.
Some died.
Many died.
Yes.
But
so why did we do that?
No, Kwaku. We did that in expectation of certain results. We did that believing that it will yield dividends to the population.
I'm sure.
Now, if 30 years later, we do an examination and find that what we struggle for is not yielding the dividends we want, are we not entitled to change our minds?
How do you do the change? Because I know you will
I don't have a gun. I'm not a soldier.
Did you see that?
You know, yes. I cannot organize a coup d'etat and so on. I cannot.
But I know you will not endorse or prescribe coup d'etat.
Under certain circumstances, I will.
In this constitutional era.
Look, for example.
The only time I would endorse coup d'etat is the counter coup d'etat, as Nkrumah himself said.
No, Kwaku, let me give you another example. If we go to the elections and we elect a government of our choice, and the previous government refuses to hand over, that will be justification for a coup d'etat. When the avenues for legitimate expression of the people is closed, you open the floodgates for coup d'etat.
This is a hypothesis I would not want to interrogate.
Why?
Because it wouldn't happen. And our history has vindicated that point. We've had about 8 or 9 transitions with all its challenges. And many of those transitions, that's why I made a point that even 2 election petitions came on board. We have found a way of deepening the democratic consolidation exercise. We should not contemplate. And because your scenario wouldn't happen, I tell you, no Ghanaian...
We cannot have a Bokassa as head of state in Ghana.
It's not going to happen.
How do you come to that conclusion?
That's why I said I will interrogate...
We could have a Bokassa in Ghana anytime.
Anytime?
Anytime we could have a Bokassa.
You are underestimating what our historical experience. I think you are... Look, we have created a critical mass of a commitment against military adventurism and for the upgrade again of constitutional democracy. Look, it's not a perfect system.
Right.
No way. I'm not talking about perfection. I'm talking of a certain journey that we have taken, including with your support.
Well,
with your effort, your participation. And here you give me a scenario, a hypothesis of a Bokassa at this stage in our history. It won't happen, my brother.
I'm surprised that you've come to a conclusion that it won't happen. Because I'm looking at elections in Ghana since 1991.
Yes.
And I'm looking at some of the candidates, some of the people who qualified to be on the ballot.
That's
their views,
the people decided,
and so on.
It's their right to be there. If they qualify in terms
one day, some of those people are going to emerge as victorious in our election.
If true,
and
fair,
you know
and
that what I'm saying.
If true, fair, and free means yes.
The person is elected. After he's elected, he says, "Hey, to hell with your constitution."
He can't do that.
It has happened in history again. We are talking about history. Why? Adolf Hitler, was he not democratically elected? Look at what he put the world through.
Kwasi, again you've gone to...
So I'm saying that when we have a situation and a Bokassa emerges and Adolf Hitler emerges, it becomes legitimate and proper.
I'm sure you're saying
to overthrow them.
Okay. All right.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
See, you know what? This argument, if you are not careful, could be reversed to justify the 66 coup. If you are not careful with this logic, it could be reversed.
In 1966, we didn't have a Bokassa in power. So you cannot reverse this argument to justify the 1966
I'm talking...
And again, on hindsight...
You know my position.
I know.
I'm talking of
on
people
hindsight
who assumed that what we had was a Bokassa.
No.
They thought we had a life president, when Nkrumah was never declared formally a life president.
Agreed.
But they thought we had... Not that they thought. They saw a one-party state. The fact, again, and I'm being very honest, the 66 coup was completely unjustified. It was a foreign teleguided adventure. So that is not an issue we are going to even debate here. But the 65 elections, you could also call it selection. 1965, the second parliament of the First Republic. You could say so. Because it was only the party, the Central Committee, that did the selection of the members of parliament. And then they were declared unopposed and came to parliament, the second parliament. And there are people who see those things as why they should justify the 1966 coup. Because they look at just those things. I don't. I disagree. Especially when you realize that it was foreign teleguided
but is it,
and financed. Yeah, so we have to be very careful.
There's no way that the 1960s, I'm not saying that you are justifying it, but there's no way that the 1960s coup can be justified based on the evidence available to us now. We have the evidence.
Even then.
No. The evidence suggests very clearly that the 1966 coup had nothing to do with the emergence of a Bokassa. The 1966 coup came about only because Western interest was affected by the government then.
But they were plotting the coup.
Yes.
The CIA, the British intelligence, and the government.
But it was not to entrench democracy. It was not to overthrow a dictatorship. It was to protect Western
I'm
interest.
saying they will say so. They
cannot today. They cannot, because we have, for example, and I'm sure you know that, you have read it, the cable which was dispatched to the British Foreign Office by the British ambassador in Ghana at the time, in 1961. I'm talking about, what was his name? Pardon?
Is it Mahoney?
No, not Mahoney, the British High Commissioner here. Oh, I just forgot the name.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, in which he said that Nkrumah had to be gotten rid of because he was making the African too politically conscious.
That's all true.
Clear.
But I'm talking of those who were internal to the whole situation and who jubilated and celebrated the coup. Just listen to them.
Snelling. Actually, the British High Commissioner then was Snelling.
Yes.
Snelling.
Yes.
Snelling sent that cable to the Foreign Office, justifying the overthrow. This is 1961, September 1961. Okay. So they cannot turn around today and tell us that because Bokassa was emerging in Nkrumah and so on. It is
of course,
not.
look, even the
It
first
is
coup
really the
attempt.
declassified documents of the CIA, and so it's clear why they conspired.
In
to overthrow the coup.
1958, we were multiple.
I had the
but there
privilege.
was a coup attempt.
I had the privilege, of interviewing AK the coup before he died. And Randy, I'm sure you've seen that
On hot
interview.
issues.
Yes, you've seen that interview.
Hot issues
in
on
which
TV3.
he admits that as far as he was concerned, Nkrumah was the best leader that Ghana ever
You
had.
see, he was part of the conspiracy.
I know. And he explains how he got into the conspiracy through threats, blackmail, and so on.
I don't believe that. What I know and what I have, he was a conscious participant in the conspiracy. That coup, the main guy was Halley. He was the main guy. The police, Halley, JWK Halley was the main guy the Americans influenced. He brought in Kutoka, Afifa, they coup them all.
But what about Kwasi?
Kwasi, 37.
37.
Yes.
Kwasi, the guy at 37.
But he was packed, he was thick, deep, neck deep in the conspiracy. I know about it. 37 was one of the areas.
That was home. That was where they met, that was where they plotted. And,
I was on admission there. I was on admission on that day. And there was a security guy. I didn't know he was a security guy, let me be honest. The old man used to visit him, sometimes very late. Sorry for that digression. Very late. He goes to sit with him. We were only two in the special ward.
Okay.
But the day of the coup, this man was so agitated. When even guns had not begun to boom, he goes out, he comes in, he goes out, he comes in. There was something wrong. It was the first day I realized that he had something like a Motorola.
Okay.
So I realized that then this man may be a very important person. By 7, 8
AM or PM?
AM. No, by then the booms were going on.
Yeah.
You could hear from Flagstaff House. This man decided to cut, remove the louvers in the ward and then cut the net, jumping out. Within 5 minutes, there were soldiers there. They knew he was there.
Okay.
Apparently, he was not ill.
Oh.
He was on duty.
Okay.
But they killed him.
Okay. They found him.
Yeah, they found him and shot him dead.
But let's get personal with Kwaku and Kwasi. Kwaku, how did you guys meet? How did you become twins?
I'm sure it's mid-1970s. I think it was during the Champon period. But Kwasi used to work at the National Youth Council. Am I right? And that's the first line. because he was, I've forgotten the exact position he was holding there, but he was influential enough to register youth organizations and political groups, quote unquote. And we had a group that we had formed called the SRELOG, Socialist Revolutionary League of Ghana.
Hey.
And we thought we should get it registered. So I went to the office, and he facilitated the registration of that group, considering its ideological nature and things. Somebody would have hesitated. But of course, he ended up also apparently being ideologically on the same wavelength. So that strengthened, that transformed that contact that seemed official to something more liberal, friends and comrades. So the friendship and comradeship began then. Of course, when June 4th happened, he was not in Ghana then, I believe, and he came down. He was opposed to it then that was a matter of principle. I was for it, but it didn't distort or dilute the friendship and comradeship that we had forged. And I think going forward, somewhere 78 or 79, thereabout, I need to check the records. I really didn't know we'll go to this deep, but we ended up being like family. He moved into my father's residence in Laboni. My stepmother was a bit uncomfortable initially, but my father was all for it, especially when he realized that this is friendship and comradeship based on something substantive. He was a politician himself, ideologically too to the left, and I'm not sure if I've told Kwasi this before, but when he was interrogating and I mentioned the name Prat, he appeared to have had knowledge of Kwasi's father, unionism and things. He felt more relaxed that, look, why not? So Kwasi became part and parcel of the household. And I used to go to Tamai a lot. My elder sister was married to a ship owner, a Dutch, and they used to bring in all sorts of containers and things. And those days too, the economy was harsh. My man's pocket was always empty. So I made Tama like a second home, living with my elder sister, so that I looked after the house. They travel a lot too, so anytime they traveled, I had to go and stay there. So virtually, I shared the same bedroom with Kwasi here, but I was mostly out because looking for cash for both political and social activities. So that's what happened. And since then, our friendship moved also very political. The coincidence of believing in the same Pan-Africanism, Chromaism, and all the rest helped to keep us together. So we ended up, in spite of the fact that he didn't support the AFIC in terms of its emergence, characteristics, and things, the friendship continued. We ended up having meetings with the Boachi Jans and the rest, which brother Henry Smith, Victor Smith's elder brother, he was a friend from childhood, So the networking became stronger and deeper. That led us eventually to formation of the group we call Movement on National Affairs, MONAS. We launched a newspaper. Before then, we used to do what you call agitation and propaganda, leaflets and all those things, but tech play and all that. It was like citizen journalism of a sort. But he was a professional in terms of journalism training. So when we launched the newspaper called Frontline Message, later became The Message, The Message, we tapped into his professional skills. At one stage, I think he was a consultant, if I check the back, the imprint, whilst I was editor. That was because he then had the professional competence to guide the movement's newsletter. It deepened. Post the Liman regime, yes, in fact, during the Liman regime, the friendship was still intact. The comradeship was still intact. I did not become a member of the PNP, even though I supported the PNP. We used to have a party called the People's Revolutionary Party, which was led by Johnny Hansen, one of the greatest Nkrumahist that I've ever encountered. He was a lawyer, a close friend of mine too, but far older than me. He was our leader, People's Revolutionary Party, PRP. But somewhere along the line, he was enticed to cross carpet to join the PNP. And so we got angry, a lot of fury. And we formed what we call the Regestionist Bloc, PRP Regestionist Bloc, that will not go into thing. Our commitment was to the constitutional system, that we agreed with the elective principle. We agreed that the Liman regime party had won, and that ought to be respected. But in terms of ideological purity, we had differences here and there. You know. Post that, our friendship and comradeship grew further. You can take it. We all went to jail anyway, post the PNDC coup d'etat. I came back.
Were you in the same prison?
No,
Okay.
1986, we were. First, we were sent to the BNI together, myself, Kwasi Prat, may he rest in peace, and Raf Kube. He was CDR, the CDR member. So sometimes I wondered how they added him to us. We were known opponents, but somehow the four of us, they took us through the public tribunal, then at State House. It was as if we were going to be prosecuted. Subsequently, we were sent to the Usher Fort. That's where we met Charles Taylor and the rest.
Of Liberia?
Yes, of Liberia.
Okay.
He was in custody. He was in Usher Fort. So, well, and the Gokas, Mauli Goka, Tremejan, and the rest. So, well, prison solidarity, it opens your mind, you interrogate issues, you get closer, you know, when you've suffered the same culture. You know. So it's gone on and on and on. Come MFJ, and that's the interesting point. I wasn't actively involved in terms of daily activities, but Kwasi will confirm, I used to play a background role, more or less like intelligence gathering and all those things. That's how come Idubwa and his famous letters to Kwasi found their way into my custody.
Okay.
It's really, I'm not sure. Kwasi, do you have copies? I must do justice, then I can keep what I have. Otherwise, justice would and fairness would demand I make copies for him. Very, very insightful.
Anyway, I'll come to that later.
Very insightful pieces of records, you know, which I will ask him his permission to include in my book. Yes, I'll be asking him permission, and I'll source it.
Okay.
But you'll be destroying.
Oh, check, not in full text. I mean,
You redact.
Exactly, man.
If it's published, it will destroy a certain historical narration that people have been given. It will destroy it completely.
But shouldn't we do that? It should be done.
No, the man was telling us to be factual and truthful. I'm taking a cue from him.
Right.
Anyway, that's a joke.
Yeah.
I would never use it unless
You have his permission.
I wouldn't. You'd be surprised that I haven't shown it to any friend before. Yeah, but it's
that
well
was the
kept.
condition on which I gave
Yes,
it to
so
you.
it's well kept, you know. And then, of course, came the agitation for constitutional restoration. There were various groups that were formed. We still had the People's Popular Party for Democracy and Development, PPDD. You know, we were in our heritage, which subsequently became People's Heritage Party. Of course, we all eventually got together under the umbrella of the Great Alliance Project with the Akai and Kufuor. Them, you know. That's where I was part of his campaign team virtually for, is it Ayawaso Central?
Ayawaso Central, yes.
You know. So we kept it. AFC came, Alliance for Change came, we were founding members of that movement. And we have this mutual respect that informs our friendship and comradeship. There are people, I've heard, there are a lot of people who think we don't communicate. There are a lot of people who think we are virtually enemies. True. I mean, we've grown. We are not kids. Because he's about a year older than me, if I'm right.
Yes.
You know, I'm 70, going to be 71. He will be moving to 72. My philosophy of life is that we'll move on. You look back to see how lessons could be learned in order not to fracture friendships and things, but we move on because we all have families. In fact, his children are like my children.
I was going to ask about a certain relationship with Kwasi's sons.
Yes, they are friends. I love them. And it's also because of the history. You understand? So I'm not sure where they are now because they haven't been in touch for a while. But you'll be surprised that there were occasions anytime they were in the jurisdiction, they look for me and come to see me. The boys, the twins.
Yes.
Yes. And don't forget the twins were in jail. I think were in prison.
Yeah.
Yes.
When they were born.
Yes.
Yes, it's true. Yeah, right.
And even that was part of what, grows your friendship. Because here we were inside and knowing that one colleague, his wife is expecting, and then the news about twins and all. It's difficult, but also helpful in many positive ways. So those who think we are not in touch, last night or just before night, he sent me a WhatsApp on this Polisario thing, which I checked and realized that he was right. Indeed, he sends me constantly. You are here, you are my witness. If you check my WhatsApp, consistently he sends me messages, some on very serious, diplomatic, foreign policies and all the rest. And we share our views on it. So we are in constant touch. That's true. And
so it means you're still conniving?
It smells conspiracy.
You're still conniving and conspiring?
There's a hint of conspiracy. Where we have reached, we can't do otherwise.
Right.
We're just friends, comrades. We have differences on certain issues, which I'm not sure ought to be displayed here. That's not the spirit behind this intercourse. So I would avoid those things. But otherwise, friends and comrades, we still are.
Was he filling the gaps for me?
No, I think that what Kwaku has said is true. I mean, I met him and others in the middle of 1970, where I was working at the National Youth Council as the head of public relations. And the first meeting was quite controversial. I mean, I was in charge of registering youth organizations, but the authorities would not register the Socialist Revolutionary Youth
League of Ghana
because of socialism. So there was a huge battle, and I was in the middle of this battle, and eventually that battle was won, and the Socialist Revolutionary Youth League of Ghana was registered, So my relationship with Kwaku and all the others, was actually firmed on a commitment to socialism, and it has been throughout, There's one thing that is very significant for me, and that has to do with our days at Osherford Prison. And I remember that Chemejan and others were executed. They were picked from the Osherford Prison and they were executed, later. And I remember that dawn when they were leaving the prison, they actually made sure that we heard we were going to be executed. They were being taken away to be executed. And I remember Mauli Goka telling us that they were on their way, they were going to be killed that day, and that we should carry on the fight. And that was an extraordinary act of courage, and that has lived with me throughout, I mean, the fact that they knew they were going to be executed, they were on their way to the firing squad, and they still had the courage, to encourage us to carry on with the struggle and so on. Something I can never forget. And all of us were in the Osherford prison, at the time. I mean, the relationship between Kwaku and I has gone beyond friendship. I mean, now I don't see Kwaku as a friend. I mean, I see him as more or less a brother.
Sure.
And we have disagreed on many issues before. I mean, and still sometimes we do disagree. I mean, for example, on the question of the AFRC.
Sure.
I mean, the June 4th event happened at the time that I was in Philadelphia. I wasn't in Ghana, I was in Philadelphia. And I came back immediately. And at the time, I was the interviewer on this program in town.
In town, rather.
Hosted by Emilia Krumwala-Dama. So 2 days after my arrival from Philadelphia, I'm sitting on television and I'm disagreeing with the AFRC and saying that it was not a revolution and condemning the executions and so on, you know. 2 days after my arrival from Philadelphia. And that was one point of disagreement. But largely, we have agreed until 2007, 6 thereabout. We had virtually agreed, you know, on many of the issues, you know, if not all of the issues. So he's a brother. I mean, this is a guy in whose bed I slept, you know. We lived together and so on, and did so many things that today I'm not sure we would be able to do. I mean, one of the things, Kwaku, if you remember, was when we decided to arm ourselves.
Sure.
You know, we actually decided to arm ourselves, and I constantly carried a revolver and so on, because of the times, you know, and we thought that it was necessary to arm ourselves, and we did arm ourselves and so on. So we've been through a lot. I think that even at our ages, there's still a lot that we are going to go through as friends, as brothers. I think that there's a lot that we are going to go through as Ghanaian people and so on. And perhaps there's a need to insist on a certain mutual respect, you know. And you see, for those on the fringes, those on the periphery and so on, sometimes they make so many mistakes. I mean, Randy, I still keep my relationship with former President Kufuor very, very close. I visit him, we have conversations. In spite of the fact that when he was in office, I mean, at some point, really, he came under my fire because I disagreed with him. And in spite of the huge role that I think I played in getting him elected as president. So we're going to be talking about transition. The transition in 2000 to 2001 was not easy at all. Sure. It was a very difficult transition. A lot of people today say that it was a smooth transition, it was an indication of how democracy works and so on. It's not true. There were forces at that time who had sworn that there would be no handover of power to President Kufuor. We had to do so many things, you know, in order to neutralize them. And for the first time, let me say that we succeeded with considerable help from somebody like Captain Kojo Chikata. If it hadn't been for him, it was not possible to get that smooth transition. So the credit for that smooth transition actually goes to Captain Kojo Chikata. You know, so maybe we'll talk about these things later. But Kwaku, accept my respect. I mean, this opportunity has been.
I have one question for you, Kwaku. One question.
Randy.
Yes, one question. Let him answer.
I would never.
Yes.
And I'm telling you honestly, I would never have agreed to be on a panel like this.
Yes.
I mean, it's been requested over a long period of time. I've always refused. Because I don't think that public discourse should be reduced to a circus or a football match with cheering supporters behind, you know, or a boxing match or something. I think it should be elevated to a certain level. I agreed to participate in this program this morning, only out of respect for you.
Thank you very much.
And because I feel that it is necessary to honor the role that you have played on this program and in general. Otherwise, I would never do that.
I appreciate it.
I mean, the request has been made over and over again. People want to see me and Kwaku sitting together and arguing so they can take sides and cheer and declare winners and so on. I'm not a gladiator. I'm not a boxer. I want to be a serious person who reflects on issues and so on. I don't want to engage in this useless, contest.
Right.
You know, I had the same sentiments when you called me. I also ended up saying that, but for you, the fact that it's your final act, I would not do it because see, people have different things. And sometimes you go on social media, there are two people, and they are giving percentages. Oh, this one won, this one lost. I mean, that's not what you were made for. Of course, I've been Kwasi on Newsfile, GBC Big Breakfast Show, and GBC Breakfast Show. Yes.
You know, Kaka Samoa,
Yes.
it reminded me this morning that I had both of you on what you used to do on Joy. What's the name of that?
Crossfire.
Crossfire.
Yes.
Yeah.
Crossfire.
Yeah.
That's true.
So Kaka Samoa reminded me this morning that
We've done it
Yeah,
before,
sometime, yeah.
and it was always based on respect.
Yeah.
You know, mutual understanding, and where we disagree. We
I will
say
still
it.
ask the question I want to ask you.
Please do.
Yeah, do.
So how come that despite the fact that you guys were like twins and everything, was he married early? You married late.
Lack of
Is this a
self-
question? Is it a question to ask?
Allow him to answer.
Well,
lack,
continue
lack
yourself.
of self-discipline.
Okay.
I was virtually a rolling stone. Yeah, I was a rolling stone, and that affected my opportunities to access
So-
a decent woman.
so that's-
Thankfully,
yes.
I got a woman just the right fit for purpose.
That's why you are still paying school fees.
Say it again.
When Kwasi has grandchildren.
Kolegono. Kole Lagoon.
Yes.
Do you understand it?
They took a lot of them.
Exactly.
That's why you don't drive past there. Because you hear daddy, daddy.
Yes. Brother. But we are lucky.
Yes,
I'm saying I'm lucky. I'm sitting here.
By the grace of God.
Yes. Focusing on journalism, practice of journalism, focusing on politics, public advocacy, actually took me out of a certain realm. Things that I was doing.
You know, I mean, Kwaku asked if I still have copies of the letters that
Yes.
Obuahini
Yes.
wrote to me. I made only one copy of those letters, and I gave them to him
Okay.
on condition that they would never be disclosed, never be published, and so on.
But that highlights your level of trust for him.
Yeah, he's the only person I gave copies to.
Okay.
You know, I think maybe one or two people read it,
But you
they
didn't give them
never had
copies. Okay.
because he's the only person I gave copies to. And there's one particular letter which is very, very revealing. So very revealing, you know. If he wants permission to publish it, why not? I mean, it's been so many years, he can publish it. So
Are the people involved dead?
a lot of them will be dead,
Okay.
you know, so he can
You
publish
know why
it.
I asked him that question?
You know, I mean, no problem at all, he can publish it.
It's one of the constraints I face.
Yes.
My problem is that my documents are not as well organized as Kwaku. You know, so you find my documents in briefcases. And even today, if I were to trace those letters, it would take me weeks to find it.
Okay.
So, Kwaku, you promised to give me a copy, I would have it. I have a copy, but it's
No,
it's-
to make it readily available.
to make
Sure.
it readily available, because I've been talking about that letter, and I think it's important to refresh my memory.
All right. Okay. So, gentlemen, thanks. And
No, I have a question for you.
please do.
What and when next?
I'll let you
Do
know.
a
Oh,
disclosure.
now I have an
I'll let
idea.
you know.
You have an idea?
Now I have an idea.
Oh, I don't.
Based on what Gabi said, and based on one or two things, I think I know where Randy is headed. I am sure that I know where Randy is
If you
headed.
ask me for
He hasn't told
advice,
me, but I know.
I would suggest that you go outside the jurisdiction.
My children are too young.
Which is jurisdiction?
Ghanaian jurisdiction.
My children are too young. Maybe I should go and rest on my farm.
Go and do some diplomacy.
Maybe I should go on my farm.
I think I know where
Some
Randy is headed.
diplomacy.
But I mean,
International
Randy, I mean,
diplomacy.
No, I'm
it's
serious.
your own decision.
Yes.
You know, but I think that this program and your involvement in journalism has been so impactful that left to me, my advice would be that this is not the time to exit. This is the time to consolidate what you
Maybe
have
we
begun.
understand when we
that's-
know
that-
what and when next.
I know where he's going. I don't make these mistakes. I know where he's going.
Kwasi knows what I don't know.
Interesting. Interesting.
I think I know where he's going.
Anyway,
He's looked into his crystal ball.
I think so.
I'll caution him. I looked into crystal ball and I failed.
For which one?
For the last election.
This one, the election.
Yes.
Uh,
I didn't
you didn't see well.
say it again.
Maybe you need,
No, they
maybe you need to change your lenses.
They
lied to
You
you.
believe
No,
they
no.
lied. You believe they lied. That was the problem.
2020, I looked into the crystal ball.
And saw clearly.
This 2025.
You know, some of the guys,
You need another eye test.
Randy,
Say it again.
some of the guys,
Yes.
if you listen to them,
Yes.
there was no way you could conclude that NPP, Dr. Bawumia were going to lose. Even listening to them, the confidence, the figures were throwing out and so on, you know.
But you know, somebody like, in my case, it's like, it's the wish first.
Yes. It's more of a wish than a prediction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.